Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Happy Monday to you guys. Hope you're doing well. Hope you guys had a great weekend. All right, just prepping the hand and getting it ready. We're gonna go over some fundamental work. Then after we're done doing some fundamental work, Ms. Nose Big, XX, Sots XX, hello. Vivacious, AJ, how's it going? Welcome from Kentucky. How are you guys doing today? Hope you guys are having great weather. All right, so just getting the hand prepared, and what I'm gonna do is just get my liquid ready. One of the things I like to stress is if you hold the bottle up to the ferrule of the brush, you're gonna be able to dispense it inside your dish without it spilling down the side of the bottle. All right, so that's obviously a great way for you to prevent using eyedroppers. Busy day at work, I can see that from Virginia Beach. Hi, Shauna, how are you? Good to have you here. All right, so we're gonna go over some preparation first, and always wanna make sure that we get that cuticle back. And then what we're going to do is we're gonna set our electric file to about 4,000 RPMs, and Queen Penelope Cruz, welcome. We're gonna go ahead and remove shine gently from the surface of the nail. So one of the things I like to stress when we're working with our electric file, we wanna be gentle. We wanna be able to tickle away the shine. So I like to show you guys on the underside of my wrist because it's super tender. That's the pressure we're going to use. You don't need to be aggressive. And what we wanna be able to do is, again, just lightly work around the perimeter of the nail, right, the cuticle area, and then use what I call a light feathering motion to remove the shine from corner to corner. We do not need to be aggressive. You want to be able to tickle away the shine, coochie coochie coo, all the way through so that we can, watching from South Africa, that is awesome. We want to be able to just gently remove shine. We don't want to be aggressive, right? But it's important to be thorough. So as you guys can see, right, from the surface of the whole entire nail, right, I'm getting all the shine off, right? I don't leave any spot basically shiny, right? And for me, it's really easy, again, by using an over grip position. You can see that I'm resting my hand flat on the table. I'm coming over the top so I can position my thumb like this. That way I have great balance. And you know, it makes it easier than doing this. I feel that a lot of beginners, when they work and they go side to side and try to remove shine this way, what they end up using is the edge of the barrel. You don't want to do that. You want to use zone 1, which is just this part right here, this part right there, right? Just lightly tickle away the shine. This is going to help you create what we call a barrier, so the customer is not constantly like looking up at the hand like this. You're coming over the top. Ohio, welcome. Good afternoon to you, Brenda. It's great to have you here. So you're going to see as I'm lightly removing zone 1, and then I start to gently remove shine. So like if I start from this corner and start just feathering, lightly feathering, I'm going to be able to remove shine thoroughly from the whole entire surface without scarring the surface, and again, without creating any type of thermal reaction, right? You could also use the bottom of the barrels, you can see, to get tight here, just to come in one direction. I remember when I was in school, and this was a long time ago, you know, my instructor was like, you have to prep the nail by doing this. This is ineffective. This is not going to do anything. By coming in one direction and trying to remove shine like that, you're not going to do anything. You're going to get the best, basically, texture by using your electric file to remove shine from the surface. And remember, the electric file doesn't do damage to the surface of the nail, right? It's not the tools that do damage, it's the fools that do damage. put the wrong tool, right, in the wrong operator's hand, and that's what happens. You see a lot of people doing damage with the hand file. So you just have to understand that if you can use something that is going to be, again, effective and again safe, if you understand the right technique, you're going to have a lot of success. I'm going to use swipe to remove all of the shine, oils, and contaminants, right, and dehydrate the surface of the natural nail. So as you can see, even with these practice fingers, look at all that grime that we're able to get off. You can't imagine what the natural nail would be like. All right, so once we get down to this point, after we remove shine, we want to use protein bonds. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in and I'm going to apply a gentle coat from cuticle to free edge. And again, notice how I'm holding the hand when I'm applying. I'm holding it like this now. That way my fingers are out and I'm able to balance so that I'm not shaking while I'm applying. This is going to apply to a lot of fundamentals when you are working, applying acrylic, applying top coats, applying color, right? You want to be able to come through with balance, right? So that you have connection and you're not shaking while you're working, right? So I'm always going to come in and apply 2 coats. This is going to ensure that I have the right amount of protein bond on the surface of the natural nail so that, again, it sets us up for great adhesion. A lot of the talk that I have with a lot of my students is you're not going to, when it comes to adhesion, right, no lifting, it's not about, again, great prep. It's a matter of understanding that there's 3 variables involved. You have to have great prep, you have to have great application, and your finishing has to be on point. So if your application is tight and you don't have to do, right, a tremendous amount of filing around the cuticle area, this is going to lead to the product staying better on the surface of the natural nail. And when we're working with acrylic, we have to make sure that we're putting in the right consistency. So we're going to get right into that right now. All right. Carla, Greg, is there a way to use the magic wand with hard gel to get a tighter look on the nails? Yeah, so like, again, when you're using the magic wand, what you're just doing is you're using this side to kind of push the cuticles back. I like to use this point if I'm sculpting to remove the gel from the form when I'm actually building. But to use it to get a little tighter look on the natural nails, this is really a tool that you're going to be using for prep. Are you talking about this? You're talking about pinching. You can build the free edge and then set it in the light for, I would say, 9-10 seconds. And then once it comes out, you can kind of pinch it. And then if you have one of those lights where you're using to mount tips on, those are actually good to kind of freeze it into place so that you have more of a C curve. But I feel with gels, you have to put the form into perfection. Magic wand is really great for acrylic, but it can be used also to tighten up that free edge to give it a tighter look for sure. Pinching 100%. All right, so we have it prepped, we have it ready to go. The fingers that I'm going to be practicing consistency on, let's just go ahead and start off. Right, I'm going to work with speed clear today because the demo is going to lead to a design. Now, here's the thing. When I'm working with a speed product, all of you guys out there know that I'm really a stickler for the way that you pick it up. Like, meaning if I submerge my brush and I tap this side of my brush, right? Oops, sorry. If I tap this side of my brush, it loads up the side that I want to pick up on. So if I, again, pull down and bounce inside the powder, you're going to notice that I'm going to get a nice even bead on one side of my brush. Now, because we're working with a speed powder, we have to get enough liquid so that we're able to pick it up and it melts really quick. That way, when you set it to the surface, it's going to release from the brush really, really easy. Now, you notice that it didn't move. Right? That's because I held it on the brush for an extended period of time. You'll notice that if I submerge my brush and I tap, right? And I pull down and I bounce, 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 and I don't wait. And then I go ahead and set this down. Watch how fast everything starts to kind of self-level. You see how it rounds off towards the edges? I almost have to be careful if it's this wet where I'm not going to get it basically all over my skin. I find that a lot of beginners, when they're working, they don't find that right consistency to start. Right? It's really like this. Like you'll see, you'll pick up the product. You don't know what side to kind of press off. You're bouncing off the edges or swirling off the sides. And then you kind of drag through the product. And what ends up happening, as you can see, you end up getting a really, really dry bead around the edges, right? That's not going to be consistent. It takes quite a bit of time for it to absorb the monomer. You don't want that. If you're coming in at a 45-degree angle, and it doesn't matter what your powder you're working with, if you submerge your brush, you tap on one side, you need it at an angle where, and you notice I flatten out my powder. I don't want to pull down, leave a divot, and then have to go into that divot that I picked up. Flatten it out, tap it, shake it so that it's nice and smooth on the surface. You're going to notice that if I submerge my brush, I lightly tap one side, I pull down to grip it and then bounce. Well, then you're going to notice, even if there are maybe slightly dry edges, you can see how fast everything absorbs. And then when I release it from my brush, nothing sticks. This is really, again, one of the key fundamentals to you picking up acrylic. You'll notice, right? Watch this. If I was to take a form, right? And I was going to put this in a convex shape, right? Right? So look at this. We're in this position, right? It's round, convex. And I picked up a bead, right? Watch this. And I tap it, boom. And I come in and I pull and I bounce, bounce, bounce. And I set it to the surface immediately. Watch what happens to that bead. Even if it's a speed product, you see how fast it runs down the sides? You're not going to be able to control anything, right? Especially if you're trying to build a tip on the nail. Now watch this. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to submerge my brush. I'm going to pull down. I'm going to bounce, bounce, bounce. Watch this. If I just wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Watch now when I set it to the surface, how much slower it actually moves. Just by waiting. Now it's still moving, but again, it's not chasing down the sides. And I'm holding the form like this with a lot of C-curve. If I was to take my brush and slide this up on both sides, I can actually put it into position where I'll be able to work it into shape with perfection. So just by holding it, right, in place for a second makes a huge difference, especially when you're trying to build body. And again, one of the things you guys notice to accelerate the cure, if I wanted to build something on a tip and I needed it, again, to set a little bit faster, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll accelerate the setting time by submersing my brush, pulling down, getting a nice bead, and before, not even waiting, what I'll do is I'll just take my brush, as you can see, and the side that has no liquid, I'll remove all the excess from the back end of my brush before I set this down with firm pressure. And now I'm gonna have a much slower clay-like consistency. This is what you're gonna wanna work with when you're actually building tips, okay? So, again, picking up the bead is really, really important. Don't stab it, don't jab it and swirl. You don't wanna do this. Don't wanna water ski across the surface. It gets too flat on one side, too thick on the other. What you want to be able to do is submerge your brush with an even amount of monomer, and again, pull down and then bounce inside, right? So that you can see everything, again, is even all the way around. That's the best way to do it, okay? Okay, so once we understand how to pick it up successfully, what we're going to do is we're going to practice the overlay. This is probably the most important fundamental when it actually comes to your success with acrylic nails. And it doesn't matter, again, if you're working with a speed product, if you're working with a core product, if you're working with a cover pink, right? It just does not matter. For those of you guys that just jumped on board, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. That's the only way that you're going to be able to get notifications. Make sure to subscribe. All right, so if I submerge my brush and I'm able, again, to get myself a nice even bead by pulling down and bouncing, if I wait 1, 2, 3, 4, then release, I have enough time to use the tip of my brush to lightly kind of slide while the product moves down towards the tip. Now watch this. I have such a great consistency that if I get my finger flat now, it almost overlaid itself. Look at this. Like I didn't really even have to do anything. I have it in a position now where like I could literally use the body of my brush and just make sure that nothing is kind of going over the edges. And the best part about when you're doing clears, you're gonna have that glass-like consistency. So even at this point, right, everything is starting to set. If I was to use the side of my brush and just kind of, again, work it around over the top so that it's round this way, what I'm going to be able to do without really having to force it in any position is let the product work for me. And that's what we want to be able to get into. Now, like if, let me just wipe this off real fast. If you were going to do something where you wanted it to, again, set a little bit slower, then what you can do by submersing your brush, coming down, getting yourself a really, really nice bead, and then just waiting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then again, right, maybe at the 6th count release, you have great workability still around the edges, and you still have, again, enough self-leveling where if I take the tip of the brush and I kind of wanted to move it from the surface, right, everything is still quite wet where I'm able to push it into place. I'm going to be able to kind of get the bead to move down to this point and create a great smile line, right? It's getting that consistency and understanding how the product is gonna move slow instead of super, super fast. And then again, once it sets, then you'll be able to use the body and kind of manipulate it from the surface. You're always gonna have to kind of go back and get it into the right position. But all the times that I work, my main focus is like, again, setting it to this area. And I kept a little bit of space here because I want to be able to show you guys something. So you can see, like, you see how it rounds off? Everything rounds off towards these edges. Like if I was to show you guys down the barrel of the nail, even though it's a little bit thick right here on this side, which is fine because of the smile line, do you see how it rounds off towards the back? That's what we want to be able to create when we're working with acrylic so that when you get to filing, you don't really have that much to file around the perimeter of the nail. A lot of beginners make the mistake when they're setting it to the surface, we get another tip, is they don't set it at the right angle. They set it with the finger way too flat. So like, perfect example, right? And notice, I'm always keeping my finger down like this, right? Down towards the towel, right? For someone who is not familiar, let me get the powder in here so that you guys can see. Let's say you're successful at picking it up, right? And then you don't count. You just set it to the surface. But look, the finger's flat, and then I press it from the front, and then I pull. Well, then what ends up happening is everything starts to run this way and towards the cuticle. There's no control, right? I set myself for failure. I'm not going to be in a great position to be able to manipulate, right, the self-leveling aspects of the acrylic because what I have to do is I have to physically, clean it up, which I don't want. Now you'll notice, right, look at this, just at this angle right here. If the finger is pointed down towards the towel and my brush is flat, look at this. Do you see how, like, when I set it this way, right, I'm creating, again, that nice, right, downward shape towards the cuticle that rounds off like this. Right? So if I submerge my brush and I pull and I bounce, 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 and again, I count 1, 2, 3, look at this. So just by setting it down and then just releasing it like this, do you see how everything moves? Then with look how I'm using the tip of the brush just to lightly kind of slide to the back. Like even here, I'm just lightly sliding. It's not, I'm not forcing it. It's a very, very light touch sliding motion so that you're able to get it as close to the cuticle area as you can, right? While the product is moving this way. That's what you want, right? So that, again, it creates a great cuticle area, tight to the edges, right? Naturally forming. Look at this. If I was to take the acrylic and I was just to kind of smash it up towards the stress area, do you see how thick this is? Like, look at the level of thickness I have through that stress area, and do you see how it shapes out? This is going to be very easy for me, again, to file in perfection without having to worry, again, about, do I have enough product? There is plenty of product. A lot of people that are in school, a lot of people that are learning to do like a 3-bowl method around the cuticle area. Like, I can tell you right now, applying a bead here, then applying a bead here, then applying a bead here, it's not consistent because you're gonna have, again, different amounts of liquid every time. And again, setting it to here, like if you were to work from this point to this point and then you had space in the back, every single time you apply from here to here to here, this area starts getting thicker because you're brushing it forward. And then if you have to apply 3 beads to the cuticle area, what ends up happening again is, how big of a bead do I need? When you're working with 1 bead, right? And that's, again, like, a lot of my students, when they're starting, it's like, get used to picking up something big. Again, flatten this out. That way I'm going to be able to take my brush. And again, how much liquid? Just get your brush. I'm using the Greg Signature brush, which is number 12. I tap on one side. I pull down. I bounce, bounce, bounce. And I count. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I slowly release. You see the space that I have around the edges? Now watch this. I use a really light sliding motion just to kind of get it to the sides, all the way around. If I need to kind of redistribute, I just touch the surface. Then at this point right here, as it starts to move, then what I can do from the front to seal it, I just brush the front, wipe my brush, brush the front, wipe my brush, let it sit for a couple of seconds. My brush is clean. You need to go back inside your monomer and kind of get the excess off, do that. Now, as it starts to set, now I can start to use the body of the brush. And you can see, even if I was to brush it through, nothing is going to stick. It's going to be able to overlay with perfection. This is what you want to be able to do to execute, again, perfection around this area in one, right? Less problems, tighter cuticle area. It finishes out fast. This is what you want to be able to do. Okay, now, if we're sculpting, right? One of the things I have to focus on, I'm going to go ahead and remove this I'm going to remove the tip completely, okay? I'm going to just clip off that whole entire tip. One of the things I do when I'm actually building a free edge is I don't wait. Let's see. So much to learn, my control, still a problem. So DR Douglas, love your control of the acrylic. I'll watch the videos in slow motion to really learn. My control, still a problem. I think I have too much liquid and powder. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of go over that one more time. I'll be able to help you out tremendously with that since we're live. So think of it this way. Think of it this way. If I was, again, working on a surface, let me just pull this surface off. And again, you can work, you can take an orange, you can take a tip, you can mount it to an orange wood stick, or you can take the practice hand and just kind of clip these on. So if you're struggling getting a nice bead and it's too wet, and I'll show you the difference. Watch this. If I submerge my brush and I lightly tap and I pull down and I bounce, 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 if I was to set it down immediately, it would run. If I just wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I have to firmly press this on. Take a look at this. It's not moving, right? So just waiting maybe 5 seconds, right? So that I'm actually able to press this. Look at this. At this point, if I was to bring this in and then actually start to kind of brush it through, it's going to be very difficult for me to brush this off of the nail just by brushing this through, because it had that really nice kind of clay-like consistency. it'll brush through with perfection. Okay, so notice the difference now. If I was to take my brush and I didn't wait, it's a huge difference. If I was to take my brush, submerge my brush, again, get myself loaded, come in, get myself a nice bead, immediately set it down. Let's say I did the cuticle area. Watch this. Look at this. If I start pulling it at this point, like it's so wet that it not only sticks to my brush, but it pulls off the nail. You can see all I have to do is wait, just wait. And again, when it's cold, it makes a huge difference. Now, I don't recommend when you're working around the cuticle area to do this. I don't recommend getting yourself a bead and then draining the liquid out, right? If you drain the liquid out and then you go to the cuticle area, the problem with this is it ends up becoming too stiff. So you end up forcing it with tremendous pressure around the edges, and you can see like it makes a ledge. I don't want a ledge. And then again, this is gonna be really, really hard for me to kind of brush through and work with. I'd rather have the right consistency where it's very easy for you to brush through, and then you don't have those problems at all, okay? All right, so let's go through that consistency one more time before we actually get into sculpting. Check this out. Get this flat, submerge my brush, lightly tap on one side, right? Almost in the center of the brush, right? In the center of the brush, I'm going to just kind of tap, then I'm gonna pull down, bounce, bounce, bounce. Start off with something medium. You don't have to get something big. 2, 3, 4, release. Immediately, kind of use the tip of the brush to kind of slide. You can start to see that everything is slowly moving. Then I give it a couple more seconds, and then from the front of the bead, look at this, from the front of the bead, I can actually start dragging it. And then I notice at this point, it's like, okay, I could start using a little bit more pressure. And then I pull, wipe, and I'm actually able to get it from this point to this point, right? In a way where I don't have ledges on the side. I'm able to brush on what I call a gel-like overlay over the surface. I think a lot of people are, a lot of people that are comfortable using gel, well, it's fantastic because gel is already in a perfect consistency. It's self-leveling, you just get it on, you work it over the surface, you overlay the top, you stick it in the light, it's done. Acrylic starts drying on you. To be able to manage that drying time and the self-leveling aspects of the acrylic, it's just a few seconds of just counting while you are working. Okay, so we've gone over the overlay, we've gone over picking it up, we've set this down. Now what we want to be able to do is set ourselves up. So the best part about using Speed Clear, all right? Watch this. I'm going to take an empty jar. I'm going to actually pour in just right up to the very bottom underneath the threads. Then we're going to take some different glitter mixes. I'm going to go ahead and take, what is this one? This is Western Blue, okay? And I'm just going to basically cover the whole entire surface. Boom, okay? Because we're going to make a custom colors. The beautiful part about this is we're going to take some dragon fruit. Right, you're gonna be able to make all different types of colors. I just wanna get this over, again, I don't wanna overwhelm this. I just wanna kind of get it over the surface. And then maybe a little bit of, let's get some inner child, tap that again. And I just want to douse it over the surface. I don't wanna overwhelm it. I need a little bit of space right on top. That way when we actually shake, mix this. And I don't want to use the back of my brush to kind of mix this up. I'm going to get the cap on, and you're going to notice just by keeping it inside my hands and just rolling it, cupping my hands and just rolling it like this, you're going to be able to get a really, really nice mix. Okay, so as you can see, all the glitter disperses really even. All right, continue to do this until it's well mixed. And then this is crazy, right? Take a look at that. Now what we have is we have an acrylic that I'm going to be able to do some crazy designs. You're going to be able to do the same thing. I'm going to be able to pick a really, really nice bead. I'm going to be able to set this down. And as you can see, right, we're going to be able to get that really, really crazy glitter. And it's going to work just like, again, traditional acrylic. That's what we want to be able to create. So I've made a glitter mix. I'm going to be using the clear. I'm going to be using this and how we're going to be able to create a design with it. Okay, so just going to flip this over. Okay, so we prep the nail. We have it ready. I'm going to go ahead and get my form. Boom. I'm going to go ahead and pre-pinch, right? Just again, pre-pinching is great because you're going to be able to set the form in a C curve, right? You have a handle, right? You're going to be able to open this up. So I'm going to use the arms. When I attach it to my fingers, I'm barely holding onto the edges. That way I can kind of open this up and get this wide. You're going to notice at this point, I'm going to get underneath the free edge, and then I'm going to use my finger just to lightly tilt it up so that the form is going to be dead straight. You can see, right, from the end, I want to be able to build from the end of this growth channel onto the form something straight. I do not want the free edge hanging down just like this, right? We want to be able to build it completely straight going out. And you can see how tight this is. Now, another way, for those of you guys, again, if you hold the handle and you come underneath, and then I tilt this up until it's touching, right? Then what I can do is I can secure the side. I want to keep this open, really, really important. I want to be able to secure it to the sides, right? And again, when you're working on these hands, since we're putting it on rubber, right? The adhesive, again, sticks really, really well, but it's not like real skin, right? When you're doing it on real skin, it's incredible. It's almost impossible to shake off unless you actually tear it off. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this mix. Well, there are a lot of pink hands out there. It's going down. All right, so what I'm gonna do, we're gonna create the perfect consistency to build this tip. If I'm gonna be submersing my brush and then tapping, I wanna be able to pull down inside, get myself a nice speed. Now remember, when I'm building a free edge, I wanna release the excess from here, okay? Now, what I wanna be able to do, if I set this tight to the front and release, right, it doesn't move, I'm gonna be able to use the body of my brush. Watch, this is my growth channel. I'm gonna walk it from the top, get it even with my growth channel, walk it from the top quadrant until I get to the corner. I'm gonna do the same thing on the opposite side. Even with the growth channel, walk it from the top. Walk it from the top. Once I have connection, then I can actually start to use the body of my brush and manipulate shape and length. So if I wanted a little bit length, I could use the body of the brush and I can kind of drag it out. I could use the side of the brush. And if we were going with, say, a stiletto nail, I'm gonna bring this as pointed at the tip as I possibly can. If I'm going with a coffin, I bring it stiletto and then all I have to do is square off the free edge on the front. I have time, right, to manipulate the tip so that it doesn't get away from me. And look at this, I still have plenty of time to come in, but you notice that I have good connection from this corner to this corner, all the way through. Now, the body, right, for me to make this ombre, to make this glitter fade absolutely tight, I'm not gonna just leave it like this. You're going to notice that I have an even structure from side to side. I'm gonna get a little bit more product, submerge my brush. Now this time, since I don't want anything big, I'm gonna basically touch it a few times to release a lot of monomer off that back. And then just a couple of bounces in the surface, right, to get this. And that might be a little bit too big, but let's go ahead and set this down right here across. And then I'm gonna cover the surface from side to side, kind of blend that through. And then before it sets, I'm gonna take the back of my brush and I'm just going to lightly pull from here, like I'm stabbing it and then pulling, stabbing, and just being very, very light as I'm pulling through. So it looks like, again, the glitter is shooting up into the body and creating a natural ombre, a natural fade, okay? So you can see how we're able to get that. If you look at the side profile, you can see how thin it is. Now, look, dude, at this point, you guys can take any type of embellishments that you want. Like let's say we're looking at decked out. This is a really, really fine Mylar. Look at that, right? You wanted to add some crazy kind of bling to the surface. Well, instead of trying to press it into that surface, I have my clear product. What I'm gonna do is take a very light amount of clear, and then I'm just going to kind of brush it through the surface so that it's wet. And then I can take a few pieces of this and then just lightly kind of place it into the surface so we get all those little reflective pieces all over the place. And that way it sticks to the acrylic and I'm not making it way too bulky, okay? Okay, once we have this set, what are we gonna do? We are gonna go to the overlay, okay? So, we don't need the glitter anymore. I don't need the Mylar anymore. I don't need everything. The free edge is built, everything is structured. But I have a long nail that we want to be able to overlay. I'm going to submerge my brush. I need to get a bead that's going to be able to move from this point to past halfway. So I'm keeping the finger pointed down towards the towel. Submerge my brush, lightly tap, pull down, bounce, 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 bounce. Get myself a healthy bead. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I slowly release. I use the tip of the brush. I lightly slide. As the product starts to move, all I'm doing is juggling the sides so that everything starts to move down past the stress area. Now, from the front of the bead, I start to brush it over. Like again, all I'm doing is holding the sides, and then you'll notice it's like, okay, great. I have a consistency where I'm probably gonna be able to brush a majority of that thickness over the whole entire surface. And then as I'm brushing it through, right, I'm going into my dish, I'm cleaning my brush, and then I'm using the body of the brush to kind of manipulate it from side to side so that I'm actually able to overlay the whole entire structure without having to go back and grab more. You want to be able to overlay, right, your glitters, right, or the designs that you do so that you do not file into the structure. I'm at a point right now where I don't even have to touch the cuticle area. Everything moved from this point to this point. I was able to brush it through, nothing different than what we were doing over here, right? I'm able to get it through, get it super tight, and then it's at a point where it's starting to set. It's okay, great. I just want to make sure that we have a great structure, even structure, overlaid from side to side. If you missed an area, you could always go back, get a very gentle amount if you needed to add it to a corner. And then again, what I like to do is get my brush backwards and then set it into that point and then brush it back, right, to fill that negative space, let it sit for a couple of seconds, and then use the body of the brush just to walk it from side to side so that you're able to get, again, great coverage in the area that you were missing. John White, how long have I been doing this for? I've been doing this, Young Nails has been in business 33 years. I've been teaching for over 25. Taught all over the world, pretty much in every single country. Taught competition work, judge competition work, worked in a salon, did everything. My specialty now is just teaching people how to do this successful for a living. Anything and everything associated with acrylics, gels, gel polishes, involved in obviously the manufacturing process of the products, but I mean, my focus is just getting you guys dialed in with the right education. Okay, so we're going to let this set. Let's go back to a couple fundamentals, and I'll show you guys just right here on a, let's assume again, that was the natural nail and you glued a tip on. So if you glued a tip on, one of the things you can do, right, to do an overlay so that it's not too bulky, get yourself a small amount, watch this, if I was to set this right to the edge, right, and I just worked it from side to side, right, just getting, and again, barely touching the surface, I'm almost treating this like gel, right, just like this. Super, super thin. Watch this from here, and I barely brush this back from that line of demarcation. Do you see I'm actually able to create that fade just on a tip? I didn't use a lot of product, right? And then once it starts to set, I could use the body of the brush to kind of flatten it out, right? And then again, you could always use the tip of your brush to kind of disperse the glitter. But as you can see, when you're doing an overlay, before you do the clear, that's how you're going to be able to build it. You don't want it way too thick. All right. Do you always have to do one ball, or is it multiple balls, right? No, multiple balls are actually all right. A lot of times when I'm working, if I set it from this point, and you'll see in a lot of the videos that I do, if I drag it down and it starts to run, and I notice that I don't have enough, I'll get a blending bead and add it backwards into this area, and then use the body of my brush to walk it from side to side so that it's absolutely perfect. It's really important to make sure that you're getting this area set, and I'll demonstrate here, right? We did this overlay. Let's say you picked up a bead. Let's say you picked up a bead, right? And it's small. 1, 2, 3, 4, you released it. And then what I went to do is I went slide, slide, slide. I got the cuticle area tight. I noticed that it's not moving, but I need to get this over the whole nail, and I start brushing it forward. Right? I start brushing it forward so I get a good seal. But you'll notice at this point, it's like, okay, right? I'm not gonna be able really to do much with this. I still have to fill this area in right here, right? Right? But the cuticle area is done. I don't have to worry about that. So if I needed a blending bead to go over the tip, then what I can do is I could come in again with a smaller bead, right in between where the glitter is, where I'm missing product in the body. I'm gonna set my brush backwards and then blend it into the body, leaving that excess right there. Then what I can do, just wait a couple of seconds, and I'm not gonna brush it. I'm gonna use the body of my brush and walk it over the surface. And then again, with the pressure, you're going to notice that I'm gonna be able to bring the product over the whole entire tip. And as you can see, I'm actually able to overlay in multiple. The key is getting it in one around here. And if you have to add from this point back, then that is absolutely okay. So you'll notice at this point, right, I'm gonna release my form, right? Like there's still a lot of flexibility because the glitter, like at this point right here, if I wanted to come in and I want to be able to pinch this and make this C curve super, super tight. On plastic, it's kind of different, but when you're actually molding it on a natural nail and you wanted to come in at this angle, don't come in too flat because then it slips off. If you come in at this angle and you just lightly pinch, just be really careful. You don't need to pinch a lot. It puts pressure, again, right there, right? We want to be at this angle. I don't want to be like this because then it slips off. You want to come up, make sure that you're putting pressure right there. And again, just be really, really careful. I've seen people who have abused pinching and they pinch way too hard. And then what ends up happening is like you create, again, you don't want to separate the nail plate from the nail bed. You don't want to create trauma. It's light pinch. It doesn't have to be aggressive. All you want to be able to do is set yourself up so that you're in this position right here and you have a deep C curve, okay? Let's go ahead and cap everything for all you guys, again, that are starting. Notice I left my brush inside my dish. That way I can come back. I could swirl it to a point. I could remove any excess that's in here, and that way my brush stays nice, soft, and supple for the next application, okay? Make sure you cap all your jars. That way you do not get dust in them when you are filing, okay? And let's go ahead and get into file finishing. So one of the things I do, let's just go ahead and break open, right? I'm gonna get a brand new file. All you beginners out there, you have to remember, take the edges down off of your hand file so that you do not cut your clients when you start to file finish. So I always like to start off by doing perimeter shaping first. So I want to be able to get the sides, the lower arch, and the front absolutely perfect. If I keep my file dead straight on one side, I'm going to get this side even. Right here, a lot of the thickness is going to be right there. You can see how it bows in. That point, again, I'm trying to get that tapered in as much as we can. So I'm keeping my file there, keep contact, I continue to file, and then you're going to notice once I have contact, look at this, I have a really nice, straight, flush ledge that runs all the way from the front, all the way to the very, very top. My lower arch. I'm not going to stick it into the corner and bring it up. I need to keep contact here at the front, right, at the lowest point, so that as I file up, as I get close to my lower arch, you're going to notice that I'm actually able to build a very, very straight extension from the end of the growth channel all the way out to the form. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposing side. I'm going to turn the hand to the side. We talk about this in a lot of the finishing videos that we do. Parallel to the finger. Don't start from the corner and bring it in. Start from the lowest point, parallel to the finger, parallel to the lower arch. Continue to file until your hand file reaches that point, and you're going to build extraordinary lower arches that are absolutely straight. You can choose to square off the front, or you can choose to taper. It is up to you. But once the sides are done, like you can see, like at this point, man, that thing is like rock hard. I'm gonna switch out. I'm going to go directly into my safety bit. Now, since I am working with this length, I wanna leave a little bit of space. I'm not gonna go all the way down because I don't want the nose of the hand piece hitting this when I'm actually filing. Just go ahead, keep a little bit of space, lock this in so that I have space. I'm gonna turn my electric file, watch this. Let's head up to about 14,000 RPMs, maybe 15,000 RPMs, up to you. Over grip position, I'm gonna look at the side profile. So here at the side, I need to make sure I don't have that much to file. I'm trying to get my upper arch, I'm trying to get that shape nice and tight all the way through. I need more at the front end, right, so that I have great shape all the way through. I'm gonna look down the barrel of the nail. I wanna make sure that my C curve is gonna be even. You can see all the thickness that I have inside. I'm not gonna work it side to side. I'm gonna come in one direction towards myself. One direction, starting from zone 3 of the barrel and working it in one direction all the way till I have a really nice even C curve from side to side. You could always use that barrel just to touch underneath, right, to give it that really, really tapered appearance. Just at an angle, right, just touch it, right, boom, and that's gonna kind of taper it off and make it look super thin. And then what I wanna be able to do again, when I'm going around the cuticle area, I'm not putting a lot of pressure. All I'm trying to do is remove bulk, right, around that edge. And then once I'm done doing the upper arch, free edge, cuticle area, I could use the body of my brush to work it from cuticle to free edge to blend in the rest of the thickness that I have, right? Once the bulk is removed from the surface of the nail, then I'm going to be using my hand file to do the rest of the filing. So again, remember the cuticle area, as you can see, is already quite tapered. It's not gonna take much for me to go around the perimeter and lightly file it so that I have a really tight perimeter. I don't want a ledge. If my finger gets stuck, it's going to lift, right? So at this point, I'm going to use my hand file. I'm gonna come down one side. I'm gonna try to blend. There's some work to do on that left side to make it dead even. I need to work the right side to make sure that it's dead even. Continue to work and shape, right, in one direction. Same thing on the opposite side. And then last but not least, to get it absolutely flawless, what I want to be able to do, let me bring this camera up so that you guys can see. I need to make sure that I'm looking at it from here, right? I need to make sure that I'm looking at it down the barrel of the nail. I'm going to make sure that my sides, the front is dead even. And then what I like to do is look down the barrel of the nail so that I can see if I need to hold my file on the surface and get this as straight as I can so that it's perfect from side to sides. All right, so that once that is finished, right? Once that is finished, then again, you know, the fine details, right? By just using a kind of maybe a very gentle buffer to take away some harsh edges. I'm not gonna, again, buff it too much. You're going to notice, look at that we're able to build a really beautiful extension with glitter. Always remember too, when you're actually working, right, with this, if you want to seal the edges, I'm going to use a little bit of protein bond over the surface and the edges. And then let's go ahead and get, right, some finish gel. Again, balance, connection, right? Look at this, I have this. One of the things I do is start from the center, brush a nice healthy amount down through the center all the way to the free edge. Then with whatever you have on the back of your brush, start working to your cuticle area so that you don't overwhelm it with way too much gel. Boom. As you guys can see, you're going to be able to create those really, really tight extensions. Very, very natural, very, very strong. All right. It's absolutely, again, super easy to do. It all starts, again, with the basics. And then again, once you understand the consistency, you know how to work it, you guys will be able to put this into work and make things happen right away. I really, really appreciate you guys. Montreal, I appreciate this. Just Love Me 7, thank you. Cut Edge Nails, thank you guys for tuning in. My job is, again, to go through the fine details. It's not like, hey, watch me work what I'm doing. All the subtleties, all the differences, the time it takes when you set it, how you hold the hand during prep, how you hold the brush when you work so that you have great balance, right? You have to be able to build strength in your hand muscles so that you don't cramp when you're working. Get these fundamentals down, learn to pick it up, the counting method so that the product doesn't get away from you. All these basic subtleties will get your fundamentals down absolutely tight. And remember, right, to be black belt in nails, to be an absolute nail ninja, it's being a master of the basics, being a master of the fundamentals. Once you have that down, dude, there is no stopping you. And it does, again, fundamentals with prep, fundamentals with application, fundamentals with finishing, how you hold the polish brush. All these things are going to lead to you mastering the basics. And again, once you guys master the basics, you're off to the races. For those of you guys that, again, loved what I was doing, make sure to subscribe. Smash that like button. And again, if you guys have any questions, let us know. Karen will be live tomorrow. I'll be back on Wednesday. We have YouTube lives every single day. I really, really appreciate you. Ronnie, Hannah, Cheryl, Cutting Edge, Nicole. I love you guys. Appreciate you, and I look forward to the next session. Have a wonderful day. Peace.